Welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast, where we talk about the struggles and celebrations that leaders and entrepreneurs experience on their journey to success. I'm your host, Christina, and I'm passionate about helping you achieve massive amounts of success at work and at home. We'll talk about all things people and organizational wellness, share relatable stories, and feature insightful guests because quality people and processes are at the heart of every success story. Ready to learn, grow, and have fun? Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Business Building Blocks podcast. I'm your host, Christina Schmidt. I have a very fun guest today with me who's going to share about her organization where they address toxic workplaces. So we've touched on this a bit and I'm super excited to have her here to talk about it with us today. So Kaitlyn Rios, welcome. Kaitlyn is the founder and president of Faced with Grace. Faced with Grace is a nonprofit specifically supporting women walking through the harmful effects of a toxic workplace and those looking to develop their healthy leadership skills and young women who are yet to embark on a career, all on a mission to eradicate toxicity in the workplace. Welcome, Kaitlyn. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. Yes, Faced with Grace. It's a huge undertaking, but I'm on a bold mission to accomplish just that. I can't wait to get rid of workplace toxicity for women.
That is me. I want to eradicate it for everybody in general. But yes, women definitely need a lot of support because we get stretched a lot. Like I love the quotes, and maybe it's on social media, like where they say, you're meant to, work a career like you don't have kids and raise your kids like you don't have a career.
Exactly. Yeah, we wear many hats as women.
Absolutely. All right. Well, before we get into it, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a physical therapist by trade and a certified wound specialist. So I've been in the healthcare industry about 10 years now. And throughout my tenure in the healthcare world, I unfortunately experienced many different types of toxic workplaces, from working in hospitals to private practices. I mean, it kind of didn't matter the setting I was in. I felt bits and pieces of this creep back up on me, no matter for the better. That was my attempt, anyways. So I've prided myself throughout my journey in my career on not settling. Once I started realizing the signs and symptoms of these toxic work environments, I would very quickly try to, re-navigate and change paths to avoid that and to get to a healthier place. And so, I think the lesson that I've seen through all of this is it really didn't matter where I went. Unfortunately, it kind of follows. And that is what told me that this was such a needed service, to help women recognize that this is not unique to them. This is a pervasive issue, and it's one that we need to all work together to combat.
Absolutely, we do. So tell us about your journey. I mean, you kind of did, just like how did you get there? But tell us about the journey of developing Faced with Grace.
So if you don't mind, and I always like to preface, this might be triggering to some. I had a pretty dark moment in my past at one of my earlier places of work where I was kind of working in the middle of three different entities that created a lot of just very toxic dynamics. Three, it was like I was kind of stuck in the middle trying to be the one to please everyone, and it was essentially impossible. And so I hit a very low place where work became an unhealthy environment for me. Hold on one second. Sorry, my daughter's chiming in.
It happens.
Work became a very, very dark place for me, to where there was one morning, specifically, I was driving into work, and I remember just this moment of very heavy weight where it was like, okay, getting to work seems like the worst possible thing in the world. Like, what if I just let go of the steering wheel? Like, what if I just let the car run off the road? Like, that seems like a much better alternative. I mean, that's how low I was. And I don't think it was until I got to that place that I realized, oh my God, like it's really this bad. I didn't even realize in the thick of it that I was in that low of a mental state. And so I call the organization Faced with Grace because the daughter who just popped herself into my office, she was a baby at the time. And in that moment of darkness and just distress, I looked up in my rearview mirror and saw her sitting in my back seat. And I swear to this day, it was like Jesus was sitting in my back seat saying, "Come on, girl, you got bigger things to do. Keep going. Put it back on the wheel." So, that's it's a very poignant story that I tell because I want women to recognize that you can truly be in these toxic work environments and not even realize it. And then
Yeah.
once you do, it's like it's all you can see, it's all you can feel, it's all you can think about until you get yourself out of it. And so I like to illuminate that darkest, lowest moment because it was so telling for me. And, fast forward to today, I look back at that moment and I'm so grateful for it because it's changed my life, literally taken those negative experiences, and I'm very hopeful that I'm creating positive ripple effects from them and teaching people that toxicity exists whether we like it or not, and there are ways to navigate through it, around it, over it, under it, however you want to get away from it, and to emerge on the other side of that as a stronger, more enlightened leader, uh, that can create positive change for others.
And it's such a heart-wrenching story of how you got there, but what beauty has come from it and what amazing work that you're doing and you're going to do for everybody else that's just going to touch your life. So love it so much. So let's start with defining what is a toxic workplace, because we can throw words around a lot like we all do. What are the signs, the symptoms, what's happening in somewhere where you would call it toxic?
So for me, just experientially, right? I'll throw it out as sometimes toxicity rears itself in the most blatant, obvious, loud ways ever. And it's just
Mhm.
glaring, right? That can be verbal abuse, physical abuse, I mean, literal health abuses that happen in a workplace, or it can be quite the opposite end of the spectrum where we're encountering microaggressions, the backhanded comments, the micromanagement of your day-to-day actions that make you have this paranoia that just sits with you all the time. And it definitely leaves a lasting traumatic effect on a person.
Mhm.
So it's one of those things where it is a very hard thing to define, and it's an easy one to just point a finger and say, oh, it's toxic, right?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't like to do that. I think a big part of what we do at Face with Grace is we sit with the person who is under the assumption they're going through a toxic situation, and we hear that situation out. And one of our big guiding principles is called open eyes, open minds, open hearts. And what that does is it allows us to, in the first phase, open eyes, it really we break everything down to more of facts, less feelings. We open this to what is actually going on. Like give me the real, give me the facts, give me the day to day. Like sometimes that means breaking it down to a minute by minute playbook of what your day looks like, because that's really how minuscule toxicity can get. Other times it's a 5 minute conversation and it's like very clear what we're dealing with. And so I think it's that piece of it. It's hearing out the situation, eliminating but not negating feelings, because I think
Mhm.
feelings are a very big part of this. Toxicity makes us feel a certain way, and I think paying attention to those feelings is a big part of navigating through it. But you have to look at the facts versus the feelings in order to know whether or not you're actually dealing with something toxic. I try very hard to guide my clients to not point a finger at a specific person unless
Mhm.
there are certain cases where a specific person is to blame and they are the toxic root of all things, but many times that's not the case. Many times it's easy to point a finger at a person when really it's a systemic problem,
Mhm.
divide, or a cultural issue within an organization. And then kind of fast forwarding to the next phase, the open minds piece of things is to, okay, now we know the facts, what are we going to do with it, right? Are you going to sit in it and work through it and be this guiding light to people? And we call it a luminescent leader who can rise above and make change within an organization. Or do you have enough facts to tell yourself that this is not a healthy place to stay and it's time to move on? Um,
Mhm.
Open hearts is kind of that, uh, you know, it's a little bit more sunshine and rainbows. Like we look toward the future with a hopeful heart and see that there is potential beyond this horrible place that you're in right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kind of three-pronged, three-phase approach to recognizing what toxicity is and how to get through it or away from it completely.
Yeah, that's great. So how often, if at all, do you find that it is maybe the person's receiving something that isn't toxic? Like maybe it's not toxic, but maybe they're interpreting things differently. Like when you have to go to the play by play, does that happen often or not very?
Not very often, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that if you're getting to the place where you're reaching out to an organization like mine, 9 times out of 10, there's something going on, right? It's deep enough for you to be seeking help and seeking resources. And I think that's important. But I think a big part of why I continue to push and message this organization is for anyone who even has a slight thought that it might be toxic, reach out before it gets to the point where it's and you need that help, right? I wish so bad that I would have had a lifeline like that could have just verified what I was experiencing and affirmed my beliefs and my understanding of the situations I was in, because I wasn't sure. And you get very blinded essentially by the organizations you're in, because it's your day-to-day, you're thick of it. You don't see past that. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
And so, to listeners, I would encourage people, if you have even a slight gut feeling that something is off, something might be toxic, ask the question. It's not going to hurt anything. And we can help you to kind of sort through that.
That's so great to hear, because a lot of times when we're in these sort of environments, number one, we think it's work, right? It's going to be tough. Maybe it's, just me, that kind of thing. But in a toxic workplace, there is a chance that there's gaslighting happening as well. So there's a chance that, well, maybe, just maybe, you're led to believe it's you. So there is that. I think you're right in saying, like, by the act of them reaching out for help to see, like, that, A, it tells you it must be hard.
Yeah.
But B, it tells you that they're willing to do something about it.
Bingo.
And I think
you've got to be willing to have enough self-awareness and grit and determination to reach out for help in the first place. And I think it's a huge value that I look for in people. If you're not willing to do the work, you're going to struggle through this, right? You've got to be willing to do that step of reaching out.
Exactly. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so let's say someone reaches out to you. You've said, okay, yes, you are definitely in a toxic workplace environment. What do they do? What do you work with them through?
I would say it's very person dependent. Each situation is so unique. I've had varying degrees of types of outreach, but for some people, it's, I need to get you with my legal team ASAP because it's really that bad. Other people, it's, we can work through leadership development tactics to help them be that, like I said, sort of a guiding light within an organization to foster healthier culture, foster change, foster growth, and development of those around them that they can influence. Other times it's, we might need to report your organization into a higher power if that's applicable, right? There's certain, different entities that applies to depending on what kind of industry you're in. I really do try to tailor it to the individual because every scenario is so, so different. And I think it depends on when the person reaches out. I've had people reach out in the thick of it, and I've had people reach out just after leaving, and they're in that sort of post-traumatic aspect of things. And that itself is a big deal. That's a very critical time to be needing support and help. And again, I think it really depends where you're at on that journey as to how we approach things.
Definitely. Yeah. And that healing time after, like,
it can take years, like literally can take years.
I know I've experienced that. Like, I realized it was toxic at some point, but I had kind of gotten, and so, but you get out, but you're like, you're still hurting. You find yourself in the next role, and those same wounds and those same reactions are going to come up for you because of what happened before. So
I've experienced kind of different glimmers of that, where it's either I'm just completely haunted by my past and I like almost think that my next organization is going to act the same way. So I have my guard up. But then there's other aspects of it where it's almost like childbirth, like you block it out because it was so painful. And then something triggers you and it's just like it all comes back. And it's this wave of just crushing emotion that you have to deal with. Again, it's everyone's so different in how they handle stress and the trauma of that. It's really important to kind of dive into those details and figure out what that individual is going through.
Yeah. So when you work with people, is it like a one-on-one sort of coaching sessions?
100%. Yes. And I will say we do offer some, like our fireside chats, for example, are a great example of, just how we bring the community in and offer them some kind of exciting resources. We'll sit down with different key opinion leaders and thought leaders in the different industries, and just bring about some new conversation topics and create some healthy discussion that way as well. So there's a group elements to it, and sort of educational elements to it. And then Face with Grace, I'm also writing a book at the moment, so that's on the horizon. So I'm these tools up, and there's a workbook component, and yes, it's going to be really great. We're building a lot of wonderful things in the background right now.
That's awesome to hear. I love that. It's very exciting. So how do you determine when you're working with somebody how do you determine if they can take care of it within themselves and kind of be that beacon, that leader of building hope, building resilience, or it's just time to go? Like, how does someone know?
We have actually created a proprietary workplace health assessment that puts a score, a truly objective score to where a person is at. And, depending on where you score, it kind of gives you some guidance. I wouldn't say anything's ever completely concrete, right? Every situation is extremely fluid, and you name to that again. But we do our best to again, tear away the feelings around it and create some objectivity to it, so that you can see in black and white on paper what you're dealing with. And it takes that obscurity away and that gray of like, oh, it's just me, or, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. Like I said earlier, I mean, I think we're so conditioned to believe that the workplace is meant to be hard, and it's meant to beat you down, and you're meant to burn out at some point, and fill in the blank, right? And I think that's so opposite the way it should be. We work purpose, and we worked to serve our own purpose. We don't work for the people that employ us. And so I think that leaders need to remember that and show up in a way that supports that.
Definitely. Yes. That is what I do, what I aim to do, because it does stem from the leadership. It does stem from the top. And if the leader isn't correcting the behavior, or the leader is displaying the behavior, it trickles to everybody, no matter what. Yeah. Even your best employees, it brings them right on down. So what is the impact of living in this toxic place? You talked about your impact, but what can be the impact to families, yourself, et cetera, et cetera?
I personally, I'll speak from my own experiences. I mean, for me, it took a good 4 or 5 years to really come out on the other side of it and look back at it with clarity. I had to do a lot of just internal, like, self-awareness development. I went through a lot of therapy. There's many components to it that I think take time after the fact. Really critical. Other than that, though, while you're going through it, I think that what I failed to do, and what I wish I would have done a better job at, is again to ask questions, to raise awareness to what I was dealing with. I just masked it all. I just kept it all in and put on that armor that we women do, and I just kept trudging forward. And my family knew. I think they knew that I was not in a great place, but I don't think they ever knew how bad it really was. I didn't let on. I didn't even talk about that story I just told you until years after the fact. And I think to this day, still, I'm a little stunned still at how little feedback or response, or like, I don't want to call it a rise, but like how little I've gotten response out of my family about that story. It's almost like they didn't even realize it was that bad, and it's a little stunning to them still. And so it's just, there just is such a ripple effect that we don't see when we're in the moment. And there was so many physiological signs I think I could have paid way more attention to at the time, and I just chose to ignore. I had lost a ton of weight, and this was like right after having a baby. So I mean, it wasn't like I was itty bitty at the time, you know what I mean? I had just shed pounds like crazy. I mean, I was wearing extra small scrubs, and they were like clown pants. I mean, it was wild. And I had a lot of breathlessness. That was a big thing. Like, after I left that workplace, I realized I was breathless during the unhealthy workplace, because I felt like I could breathe again. Like, how sad is that? You don't even realize it. But, I just encourage people that are going through these situations to really pay attention to your body. I mean, your nervous system does a lot for you to warn you of what you're going through, and it's not prioritized enough a lot of times.
Agreed. Yes. I was just actually bumped into a friend of mine. We were talking about weird stress signals that we have. My weird one, like her weird one, she can't park. Like she gets a spatial, like she can't like do spatial things. I get weirdly clumsy. I start dropping everything. So I know sometimes when I get super clumsy or, and I do feel other things in my body as well, but I've learned to pay attention that when I'm dropping things more, I used to then get mad because I would drop it and then, and it would just escalate.
Oh, well.
Exactly. To say, okay, no, that's my stress thing. What's stressing me? Oh, it's this.
Yeah.
Take a breath. That's okay. And then like regroup, and so it's so good to be aware of things in your body, whether it's physical, whether it's like tension in your neck or your stomach or wherever it might be that are not your norm.
Well, and I think the tricky part about that, and probably why I chose to just ignore it, is that I had been in that situation for so long that it had become my norm.
Yes.
And that's why, like, getting myself physically out of that environment is finally the time I realized, I wasn't breathing for the last 3 years. Kind of a big deal, a little bit critical to life detail now.
Oh my goodness. So what's the dream? Like looking out in the far future, Face with Grace has impacted huge amounts of people, been wildly successful. What's the dream there? What's that look like?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that question. I think that it's Face with Grace becomes a name that is associated with just positive change, and the world knows about it in ways that we've helped so many women and young women who have yet to enter workforces truly change the trajectory of these generational toxic patterns. Really the future looks brighter because of it. My dreams come true. And I always say it's like I'm doing this because I feel very called to do it. And if I help one person, like that's amazing. Like I'm so on cloud nine because of that. But to help hundreds or thousands of women, that would just like, oh my gosh, I like tear up thinking about it because it's so amazing. Like I think that the potential for this organization is huge. I believe in it. I have several board members that are just so supportive and really just championing the mission. And I would just love to see it just skyrocket and take off and change the world.
Amazing. Yes, I would too, because man, if we could rid the world of toxicity, toxic workplaces, so much better. So much better place to be.
Exactly. It would clear the nonsense and the noise so that we could do good work, That's really what it's about at the end of the day.
Yes, and motivation for businesses, everyone would be more productive.
Yes, drama takes way too much time.
Exactly. Like you probably can't even measure the amount of impact that a toxic workplace has. But I know myself, having been in several, you talk about it with people. You talk about it at the water cooler. You talk about it when you're supposed to be doing something else. You're talking about things. You're talking about the politics, the things that don't work. It's a huge time suck.
Well, and not only that, but like that silent toxicity I talked about with like the microaggressions and the micromanagement and things like that. I know for me, I could take an hour to craft an email just because I'm so afraid I'm going to say the wrong words and it's going to go out into the universe and somebody's going to have something to say about it. Like that has sat with me for 7 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Dealing with that. Like I'm still trying to just get over the hurdle of like, write the damn email and let it be what it's going to be. And no one's going to attack you for it where they used to, right? Like that's such a PTSD thing I deal with still. So
yeah, I get it.
It's a time suck. Like it is a huge time suck. So I would love to get past
that. Definitely. Oh my goodness. And just like your ability to function smoothly, like to not get hung up on that, like emails, but just in general, like when everybody is actually working together, finding the problems and solving them instead of hiding them, politicking all over the place to cover them up or to talk about them and wordsmith them.
Right. Oh my gosh, it's such an issue.
A lot of energy around that. All right. So Kaitlyn, what is exciting coming up for Face with Grace right now?
I think the book is the biggest thing. It is written, but it is in edit mode, which is taking far longer than I want it to. But it's in the works. Big deal. I'm really proud of how it's turning out. Our fireside chats, you should look for those every month, second Saturday of the month. We usually post them out at like 9 a.m. on Saturday. I hope in the future to bring back our roundtable event. So that's something we started with in the very beginning. I've slowly realized that we're just not quite big enough yet to bring the audiences in, but Our roundtables were a really special event that I think once we really build some momentum with this, I'm excited to bring those back. And then some partnerships. We're working on some strategic partnerships that I think are going to create a lot of really positive ripple effects in my community specifically. And then in the fall, we are planning a kind of a virtual summit, if you will, where we plan to have a lot of different thought leaders and speakers come together and host sort of a 3-quarter long day event and just really hear some interesting speakers come to the table. So I'm really excited about all of that.
That sounds amazing. So many exciting things happening. So if people want to stay in touch with you and stay in touch with Face with Grace, what's the best way to reach out and get in touch with you?
Yes, thank you. So connect@facewithgrace.org is an email address. Anyone can reach out to me directly through that. You can also find us online at facewithgrace.org. That will have anything about our services all the way to our About Us page and many, many more things we're starting to layer on as we build. So.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, sharing what you do, and giving us all some tips for what can we do? How can we work with and improve our workplaces? So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And to the listeners, thanks for listening today. If you liked today's episode, please like it, share with a friend, leave a review, or leave a comment on the YouTube video. We're so excited to have you part of the Business Building Blocks podcast community. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Business Building Blocks podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss what's next. If you found value in our conversation, please leave a quick review, like, or share. It helps us reach more amazing listeners like you. For more resources and insights, visit christinaschmidt.ca, where you can find tools and support to empower your leadership journey. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.